Speak to Bronny in the last several weeks or months and kind of the development that gets to the point where, looks pretty comfortable out there, leads the team in scoring and assists, and just the kind of the growth that he's shown.
Yeah, we've obviously monitored him in the G and feel like he's, in those sort of end game situations, when he's gotten a chance to play with us, he's been really good. So not surprised by tonight. And I think his confidence is growing. You mentioned the word comfort. That's certainly there for him. And I think the next step is just becoming like an elite conditioned athlete. Because when he does that with his physical tools and just his burst and his handle, and we think he's going to be an above average to really good NBA shooter. He's gonna have a chance to really make an impact.
Yeah. JJ, but what do you take out of those 48 minutes minus what Mike just asked you about?
I think it probably reinforced some thoughts. We've been really, really good. It's weird. We've been really good with our greens. I think we started really doing it again in the New York game in the Garden, and for some reason, and maybe it's just not having full strength and playing guys that haven't been with us all year, but for some reason we haven't been able to execute that against Giannis. Their technique has just been god-awful. No matter how many times we talk about it, show it, it just hasn't been there. Did it one time tonight. Cam forced a jump ball. Did it one time. Yay. So...
and if you'll entertain another Bronny question, I know how you feel generally about narrative, and I'm sure there will be a reaction to this in some ways, probably by some of us too. But how impressed have you been with just sort of his ability to kind of keep his head down and be about the work through all sorts of stuff that traditionally would never be thrown at a second round pick?
Yeah, I saw some video interviews that he did at the Combine in May, and obviously I was not the Lakers coach, just an NBA analyst and podcaster at the time. And I texted Bron, and I was like, man, Bronny has his head on straight. He gets it. And since day one, I've just been impressed with the person that he is, and to deal with, because of who his dad is, and just keep a level head about it and be a class act. Says a lot about him, says a lot about that family, and the way LeBron and Savannah have raised him. It was obvious to me from the moment I started spending time with him on the court this summer. He was certainly going to be an NBA player, and I still believe that he'll be an NBA player.
JJ, once the games were rescheduled, this was obviously going to be the toughest stretch any team has gone through this season, just because you played 3 straight back-to-backs. Then you lose Rui and LeBron right before this stretch. You go 3-3, 2 of the games. You don't have forfeits of your starting lineup. How would you just assess the past 8 days and finally being on the other side of it?
You have to look at it big picture and feel good that you go 3-3 in this stretch, and it was going to be tough no matter what. With the added game, made it harder. I don't think the game that exists today in the NBA and the modern NBA player is I wouldn't be either if this was what I came up in and this was the game that I had to play every night. It's different than when I first started. it's just you're not built to play 6 games in 8 nights. The game doesn't allow you to play 6 games in 8 nights. It's just possible. That's why I don't think have 4 and 5 anymore. If there are, I mean, I lived through the lockout year. I somehow didn't miss a game till the very end because we had secured our seed. It was a road game in Memphis. Stan gave me the option, do you want to play all 66? And normally I would be like, yeah, I want to play. But then I was like, fuck no, dude. I just played 65 games in 92 days. Like, this is impossible. And it was an easier game to play then because there wasn't as much movement and there wasn't as much spacing and you didn't have to cover as much of the court. It's what our guys just went through. It's difficult. And the old heads are going to talk about how physical it was in the 80s and 90s, and that's fine. But, the level of physicality in our game and the way that the court has to be covered and all the movement, it's tough. And just glad to be on the other side of it. And hopefully, going forward, we are healthy and can make a push.
A couple of games.
I don't think they drop down into the play-in. I
don't either. But I mean, it's still nice.
It could happen.
Listen, we don't want the play-in. We've had it.
No.
We're done with that. I want to enjoy those couple of nights watching without any panic. Wouldn't that be fun?
I think they've already determined that they're not going to be that team this year. It's just you can just feel something.
They're too good.
You just feel something there. They're not, and it's like they're not going to be denied.
Yeah.
When they're healthy, when they're full. And I think that's what they're trying to do is get everybody back on the court together. And when they get back on the court,
listen, with 13 games, their goal healthy with 13 games left is to try to get to that 2 seed, which they can.
Yeah, that'd be huge.
Yeah, 10-3 would be great, wouldn't it?
And keep in mind, if you avoid the play-in tournament, that's a whole extra week of rest. Because the Lakers
is absolutely, you have to have it.
Yeah, you have a few practices.
A guy named LeBron.
Chill practices. And
really good when he takes a week off.
He's not bad.
So,
a little time.
I want to give Bronny some love because we're trying to look for some positives. And he looked great tonight. He really did. He had 17 points on 7 of 10 shooting, so 70% from the field. 2 of 4 from 3. The 5 assists, and by the way, probably could have had 8 or 9 assists if a couple of bunnies would have been hit. He was dropping dimes. 30 minutes. You just got to be happy for him. And James, you said this, I think at halftime maybe. Just the comfort level, right? Like you can it's fun to see, and we see it with all young players as they come up through the system. When you get to watch them from start to the beginning of the year where they don't, they look uncomfortable or nervous, to now it's a totally different player.
This is what he's always wanted to do when, we saw him in Cleveland, Miami, shooting hoops before the game with his dad, and after the game, he was 10, 12, he and his brother. And he's lived this life, and he wants to play. Yeah. And he can play. He's
across the board.
He has skills, and he's a hard worker. He's got his dad's blood in him, and he's been working really hard. So now I think, the big show is over. He's not under the microscope as much. People were just unfairly giving him a hard time for being drafted 55th. Like, not a big deal. But then he was LeBron's son. So automatically he started getting that friction and hate from people. But now I think he's like, okay, you see him in the G League, I can play, stepping up. I don't care who's playing on the court. He's playing against NBA players. And what I'm seeing is relaxed. He's not thinking anymore. And, it's hard for him. I can see him going to the scoring table and people like, Bronny.
I mean, they're chanting his name everywhere he goes.
It's really tough. But I think he's, let me play.
The fact that he plays under those circumstances tells me a lot about the young man. Honestly, it tells me a lot about him as a player, too. There's a lot of pressure there, right? Everyone chant your name, want you to shoot every time you touch the ball. By the way, his decision-making, I think you have to. It was really impressive.
I'll tell you guys what.
He was the lead guard out there tonight when he was on the floor.
Yeah.
He was the one making the decisions.
And I love you bring up the 5 assists. He showed us kind of a nice array. He's willing to drive, willing to hit a little teardrop, hit some threes, went to the line a little bit. I'll tell you what, before the Luka trade, so let's rewind 2 months. The number one question I got when I run into friends or just people who want to come up and talk Lakers, wherever, number one question I got was about Bronny. What's he like? What's his career arc going to be? What's his talent level? Now you add Luka Doncic. All those questions are over now. Now it's, can they win it all? So things have been upgraded as far as the big picture for the Lakers. But a lot of people were so curious about Bronny. You know, what's he going to be like? And I've always liked talking to the kid. I think he's a good kid. He had good parenting, no ego at all that I can sense. So I'm really happy for him.
Yeah.
Because it's not fair when you're just a few picks from the last pick in the draft, and people are like, well, how's this going to turn out? You know, is this what's this